The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful day. We have a very special guest today. We have Shawn Geris. Now, I'm going to say Detective Constable Shawn Geris because Shawn is from the Toronto Police Service, and his unit is the Gang Prevention Unit, which, as you can see on his shirt, Engage 416. And we actually had a guest prior to to Shawn that was also, and that was Ron Chinzer. Anyone wants to see those? Go back to the archives.
Yeah, look at the archives.
But today,
now, is it pronounced properly, Geris?
Well, it is. It kind of is. I can tell you a story about it. It might be a little bit long, but so it's police related too.
Okay.
So it's
Okay, perfect.
So
Story time. We love story time here.
years ago, I'm trying to think. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was downtown, and I was working in the kind of in the touristy area,
Right.
so Dundas Square, in and around there.
Yeah.
And a Dutch couple stopped me, and they, of course, when you're down there in your uniform, people stop you and they want to know directions. Where's the CN Tower? And
Right.
usually you look up and I just point. That's where it is. There.
yeah.
But this couple, they'd stopped me and they said, I think they wanted to go to the aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
So I started talking to them, and I heard their accent, and of course I recognized accent because my father was from the Netherlands.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them, after I had finished giving them the explanation, I said, I'm Dutch as well. My last name is Geris. And the lady politely said, no, this is not the way you pronounce Geris. You pronounce it Geris.
Oh, wow.
So this is the pronunciation that I had never even heard of, because people used to go Geris.
Yes.
They'd say it was a J, it sounded
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it was Geris, a
Yes.
RG.
Yes.
But I can't imagine telling people that's the way to pronounce it, because I'd be spitting all over them when I did. So it's,
And not everybody can actually say that. I mean, I can actually, when you say
I
like
can't do that.
Geris,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in Greek, the it's like almost the letter X or whatever has that pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way you would say hero, right? That's why people say gyro. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
So to me,
Oh, that's the same thing?
but that's good, man.
Yeah.
First of all, we massively support law enforcement, support police organizations and what they're doing, especially what you're doing, which is gang prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also good that we do touch on that, because I think a lot of people are clueless to the fact that gangs exist, right? And in their minds, they're thinking of Bloods and Crips and very like things that are maybe prominent in the U.S., but not really what we have here in Canada. And I know there's also some, events, for example, that we know are coming to Toronto in the next couple of months that, we'll start hearing things like, there's been some gang activity identified or anything of that sort. So you do hear it. It's just that I don't think people see a tangible element to it, right? So how does Engage 416, for example, work in the dynamic of helping, with gang prevention?
Yeah, well, so gangs have been around for a long time, and they kind of migrate from the U.S., the culture, I guess,
Right.
gang culture. It's nothing new to Toronto. Toronto has had gangs for a while. Actually, there's quite a few articles. I just read one about the Beanie Gang, which was a gang in 1948. And same kind of risk factors that occurred in those kids' lives are occurring in these kids' lives currently. So when I mean risk factors, there's a bunch of risk factors that have been identified by academia that kind of, if you have more than 5 or 6, there's a higher propensity for you to actually become a gang member or become involved in criminality. But these gangs, like I said, they share the exact same risk factors as ones today. One risk factor back then, the Beanie Gang, I'll talk specifically because that's where the article was talked about.
Yeah.
But they were fatherless homes. We don't really call that. We call it poor parental supervision. That's what the risk factors in academia
Right.
have identified them as. But back then, there was no father figures, no role models, and the majority of the kids interviewed in this gang, that was one of the common risk factors. There's more as well, but there's a lot of similarities. Yeah, and it's kind of funny to kind of go back and look at. I shouldn't say funny, but
It's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
because
no,
it's
for sure.
almost 70 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. And you see the exact things that were happening there
Are happening right now. Wow.
And so the gang culture it's progressed. I mean, the violence level back then was kicking and punching, and there was lead pipes, but there was violence. People were getting beat up. People were getting broken bones and broken jaws. And,
Yeah.
it's escalated to firearms now. It's
Yeah.
with anything. I think as you look at history, things have progressed. The way we dress, the way we
Right.
technology, whatever it is, and that's where we've kind of gotten now. I mean, back then there wasn't any treatment for these gang members. Well, there wasn't any help for these gang members. They just were like lost to society. And with what we do at Engage 416 is, it's a different approach. It's preventative intervention. I've been part of the suppression part for the majority of my years. I worked in the Jane and Finch community. There was gangs there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There was gangs there. I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, I chased these kids' use when they were in possession of firearms. I've been in places where drug dealing is horrible. I've had to put my finger in bullet holes of young kids that were shot by rival gang members.
Right.
And what we were doing, the whole suppression piece, arresting these kids, it was a piece of the puzzle, but I think through history it's proven that it's not working. And I think that's why the Engage 416, and this was, at the time, Jeffrey Cheap Raymer's idea. He wanted to pull gang members out. He wanted to figure out how we could mitigate gang violence in the city. And Engage 416 was basically the birth of that idea.
How many people are Engaged 416? Like, are deployed to the unit?
Currently, there are. Let's see. We have. So there's myself, 3 other constables.
Yes.
And a detective.
Okay.
We're looking to expand.
Yes.
Hopefully in March, we're looking to write another grant because we are actually we are grant based.
Okay.
Everything we do is is paid through the grant.
Yes.
It's the proceeds of crime grant.
Okay.
We utilize that, and that helps our program thrive.
Okay. And Shawn, and would you say, like, I'm going to assume that because Engage 416 is all about engaging and all that, you're very involved with the communities. Like, they're seeing the representation from Engage 416.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in our infancy, I would say, because of COVID. COVID really cut us off at the at our start.
Right.
We got up and running, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. Like any business,
Yes.
we took a hit.
Right.
So now we're back,
Okay.
and we're in the communities. We just had a basketball initiative that just went on with. So we took the neighborhoods, and a lot of these neighborhoods that are plagued by gangs.
Yes.
We took kids from each neighborhood, and we created a clinics that went through the month of
Oh, amazing.
April to May.
Yeah.
And they went all through these neighborhoods. So the kids from different neighborhoods were visiting the other neighborhoods and having basketball camps
Amazing.
there. And usually these kids don't step outside of their neighborhoods because, one, they may be afraid of going into another neighborhood and being recognized by a rival gang member, or, and they're not recognized, so
Yes.
they may be targeted.
Right.
And as a result of that, they might be targeted, might be shot, might be stabbed, might be beat up. So they don't want to do that sort of thing. So what we did was we provide a safe environment.
Came in like the United Nations, basically,
Yeah.
and created that piece.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
What was the age group for that?
I believe it was from, I'm going to say about 10 to about 15, 16, 17, probably
Yeah, okay,
17.
so up into teenage age. Okay,
So
that's amazing.
what kind of person would you like, from your opinion, think should be someone that could represent this division well, the Engage 416? Because I'm pretty sure, like, you have, like, look, there's many different kinds of personalities, but it seems to me like even talking with you and meeting for the first time, you have a very gentle approach. And for those that are listening and not watching, Shawn is built like Hercules. Okay,
Yeah.
so to me, like, but there is a demeanor about you that is very approachable, right? Are these kind of some qualities and stuff that you think help in connecting with the community, especially for something like this?
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is, you talked about the way I look, it can be a barrier, right?
Okay.
I think people, when they see a police officer that's big and muscular, they kind of already get their back up. They're like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy. They're scared.
Right.
And I've had that even when I was working in the bars, people wouldn't approach me because, I was big, but I also wasn't smiling either. So I've learned to train myself to smile a little
right.
bit more.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then the uniform becomes a barrier too. So one of the things that you got to be used to is not wearing a uniform. The other thing, is the mindset too. I mean, yeah, it's not for every police officer. There are police officers out there that I've worked with that are more suppression orientated, because that's all we know. That's what, for historically,
Right.
we've been a suppression unit. So when you get into this type of work, you know, it's tough to change that mindset. I was lucky because I started before policing. I started as a youth counselor, and I had a good role models, you know, in my father as well, because he coached wrestling for the longest time. But watching him deal with kids, watching him solve problems, the same thing transferred into my life when I worked with the youth. So, you know, I worked in London, Ontario at a couple group homes, and these were kids that were in conflict with the law, and they were taken from their homes because they had been arrested and they were before the courts, whether it was open custody or closed custody. And I'd sit down with them, and, you know, often their behavior would, you know, if there was an issue, their behavior would get out of control in the house or something like that. Yeah. And after they had calmed down, you know, that's when the opportunity was there to really find out what's going on. When you have a conversation, as you guys know, if you sit back and you listen, you'll learn so much.
Yes.
And that was the key thing, I think, with me when I was doing that, is that if I just sit and listen, I'm going to learn a heck of a lot more. And that's a tactic in negotiation. You can do that. After years and years going to school in Michigan, I took a course in that. And
I mean, that's a life lesson with your spouse, anyone, any type of relationship. If you would just really listen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what's amazing about what you're doing is, okay, gang prevention. Mm-hmm. Even that statement seems like a bold statement of like, what does that even entail?
Right.
Right. Like, why would you even try to take that on? You're police. You're supposed to suppress. Just get rid of the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think you're almost endeavoring to like change the climate, because as you were saying with some of those indicators, there's like a perfect storm that kind of happens, and some people get caught up in it. Yeah. Right. You know, so like, how did you decide? Was there a pivotal moment for you, you know, because that was like, okay, this is what I need to have happen. I mean, the exposure to working with youth was huge because you saw the other side, the other perspective through these conversations with them. Did you just warm up to like prevention is better long term, you know, or was it like, you know what? Was there one specific individual that you policed and you thought, look, what could I have done differently or something?
Well, I think it's a you know, I'm just trying to think.
Like, how did you end up where you ended up, like, you know, doing gang prevention?
Yeah, I mean, my personality was always, I guess, a little bit more, I'm going to say soft when it come to kids, you know, and working in Jane and Finch community and seeing these kids and what they were going through. Like I said, sticking my finger in a bullet hole and trying to save a young lad's life. I mean,
wow.
I don't think we can. Most of us don't get that experience, and it can be traumatizing, but it also makes you think about, you know, what is happening around you. When I first started my policing career, you know, all I wanted to do is drive the cars fast, you know, chase the bad guys,
right.
You know, and do the fun stuff, right? The lights on the sirens and stuff like that. Yeah. But I ended up actually going back to school. And
after you got into
I got on the police service. So I went in and pursued a criminology degree. And in the process of that, I started to gain some real knowledge of why things were happening in the community. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it was strain theory or social disorganization, but these things were you know, we're unlocking things, my experiences. Mm-hmm. You know, okay, this is why this gang member is doing this. This is why this kid in this community is stealing stuff or whatever.
You're gaining some understanding now.
So you're unlocking there. And I've had conversations with you know, individuals in the neighborhood who were gang related or gang members, you know, about, you know, after I'd taken those classes, they were, you know, I'd said to them, you know, listen, and I was talking about strain theory. I was basically saying, you know, hey, and this was me at a local area where there was drug dealing, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking, and they're not running away because they don't want to seem guilty, but I know the guy's got this history, so we're just chatting, and we used to have conversations, and I ended up, you know, bringing up, you know, listen, I know there's a lot of things in your life where you're getting blocked, you know, whether it's school, you know, if you're going to school and you have a learning disability and, you know, you need help, but your school doesn't provide it because your school buses you out to Scarborough for that help. And you're saying, listen, I'm not getting on that bus for that. Or, you know, you're trying to get a job and you can't because you live in Jane and Finch and that's your address you're putting on your your resume.
Yeah, right.
So these are the things that I kind of talked to him about, and the blockages that are occurring. So because he's getting blocked, he's finding other avenues to pursue to achieve the status that we have. So me and you, we've got status as employment. We've got status. Maybe you guys are famous because you're on this show, right? But these kids don't have that. So they got to. They don't have the conventional route because it gets blocked by one way or another.
And you're not even bringing up the lures, the strategy of the gang members to lure, and basically exploit them into the gang. Yeah.
So you have that just factor in itself. And the kid was actually, after I explained that to him and kind of relate to him and listen to him, he's going, man, and this is the name. They gave me a moniker when I was on the streets, but they used to call me Mr. Clean. He goes, man, Mr. Clean. You get me, man. And to me, that was a big thing.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's really good. When someone can connect with you like that and say something like that, that's huge. I mean, look, I can see, like, I'm pretty sure you know Sean Flemington Park.
Yeah.
I grew up in there. Right? And I grew up there up until the age of 21. And I grew up around an environment that, wasn't necessarily something that most people, if they even walk through there, would feel comfortable in. But it became my normal. And that was for me. So for me, like, the fact that I know you can have a conversation with someone and they can open up to you is because they're finding that, that common ground that they can speak with. And that's when magic can happen. So to me, I think that's a huge piece. I mean, almost answering the question earlier was like, what kind of skill or quality should one have entering this kind of type of work? It's like, you have to look at it differently.
I think it was interesting what you said. You just basically said the people that live in these neighborhoods also feel the same fear or uncertainty of the dangers that live in those neighborhoods.
Right.
So if no one goes there to ever offer an alternative, or give some hope, or some, like whether it's being a fatherly figure or an after-school program, if no one does anything like that, then that's all that's left.
Yes.
Right. You're kind of victim to the environment.
Right.
Yeah. We've had that. We did the gang prevention town hall meetings. We did 30 of them in Toronto's lowest equitable and gang impacted neighborhoods. And as a result of that, we listened to the community. We had a time to sit down with the community and actually listen to them. And one of them said they were scared to come out of their homes. And, one of the strategies that we built from that, because we listened, was the safe play that's occurring in 31 Division and and also in the Bring Back the Park, which is in 23 Division. Basically what it is just spending time, police officers spending home time, mostly the neighborhood officers, spending time in the neighborhood and interacting with individuals. And the way that came about is actually, when I was in the transit unit, we were disbanded and we were used more as a TAVIS. And there was some gun violence at the time. And the chief at the time, Saunders, wanted us to kind of be in some of the problematic neighborhoods that we're experiencing. Not problematic neighborhoods, but neighborhoods that were impacted by gang violence.
Yes.
That's what I meant. I don't want to make anybody upset.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So we spent time there and we sat in our cars, and as we sat in the cars, we, nobody was coming out still. And you're watching the parks, nobody playing in the parks. You're watching, all this stuff happen. So we got out, me and my partner at the time, Matt McGinnis, who's an amazing officer, probably the smartest officer I've ever come across in the entire service.
Nice.
But we got out and we started talking to people, and more people started coming out more and more when we were around. And we were, Matt actually bought one of the kids, like the Harry Potter series for them to read. Right. So it got so good. And we got nicknames as well in that neighborhood too.
Nice.
I got nicknamed Teddy Bear. So that kind of goes with my personality.
Yeah.
But it, that's how that started. And, even today, a couple of years ago, I went back to the Shoreham community and I was in there, and that same girl that called me Teddy Bear, she remembered me, and I was like,
wow,
oh, it was amazing, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
You were able to have that, provide that safety back to the neighborhood by just being there.
So your presence almost was you were almost like a community chaperone in a way, so that people felt like we can go out, we can go to the park, because at least they're around. Yeah,
and they're doing it now. Like we do it, we don't do it, but 31 Division does it 3 times a week. And from my understanding, and I don't know whether it's, if you talk to Sergeant Dave Haynes, it has mitigated gang violence in that area.
Just the presence.
Just the presence.
Wow, man.
Okay, that's amazing.
That really is. Now, there's a plethora of Mike, the word he likes to use. Plethora. So one of the things also that I know, just kind of doing a little background on yourself, is that you're into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we talk to a lot of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community. We have some of our own personnel that are also instructors. And I also know that there's been some real thought where agencies, police agencies for that matter, are looking at bringing that skill set into their foundation training, because it's just such an important element to potentially as a tool that you may need. How do you find? I mean, first of all, you're a black belt, it seems.
I am, yes.
So,
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for yourself, like Shawn, like when you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and using it as the practicality of day to day, is that something that you find as a very strong skill that kind of levels you up almost to help you look at things in a certain way, and if you have to go there, you have that?
Well, I mean, I've always kind of had, like, I've wrestled all my life, right?
Right.
So then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came into my life when I got older, because I had these aches and pains from wrestling.
Right.
So it was kind of it was something that I just fell into.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I progressed through it, so I had the wrestling background.
Yes.
But it became really understanding body positions and stuff like that. And, I really, really enjoyed it, the process. But the one reason I wanted to do it, I started watching the UFC, of course.
Yes.
And I started thinking, you know what? I'm in a policing role. If I ever get put on my back God help me, please.
Yes.
Because wrestlers don't like going to their back.
Right.
They
right.
hate
right.
it.
Right.
I'm going to be in trouble. So that's one of the things I started to do, is actually I picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because if I ever got there, God forbid, because I knew my weaknesses, and that's part of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you are trying to achieve belts, you look for your weaknesses in your game.
Yes.
And then you try to improve them.
Amazing. And it's actually one of the most common things that fights or altercations usually end up on the ground. Like, there's a very high percentage of that.
Yeah. You can trip over. I mean, in policing or security, you're in a room and you may trip over whatever's on the floor, right?
Yeah.
It could be
Chairs, people, like
people.
anything. Yeah.
So you're going to be on your back. And if
right.
I end up on my back again, I mean, I'm a big guy, but somebody I could be, engaged with another big guy.
Right.
Or big person.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So that basically was a skill that you started to go after, and then just really started to pursue it to the point where you're at now as a black belt.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the process. And I had the great opportunity of teaching at the Toronto Police College. So I really, of course, I did no gi for the longest time.
Yes.
And because it was so similar to wrestling. But then when I got to the Toronto Police College, I focused on, again, I looked at my weaknesses.
Yes.
Okay, no gi. I was pretty good at no gi. I was doing tournaments and winning tournaments. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to do gi. So I started doing gi strictly. And then I was pretty good on top. And I said to myself, well, how is this fair?
Right.
If I'm on top, my weakness is my bottom. So whenever I'd roll with somebody, be like, okay, come on top.
Right.
So that's how I polished my bottom game, just
Okay.
doing that, finding
Nice.
the holes and everything. But
And for those that may not be familiar with, gi is not a French name.
yeah,
It is an actual robe-like
Yeah.
garment used in martial arts.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
just
yeah,
for clarity.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we need to do that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But it was hard. It was a transition. It slows you down when you're fighting, because with no gi, you're pretty much naked except for shorts.
Right.
And, you can move fast. I can move as fast as I did with wrestling. But the minute you put on the jacket and the pants, now people can actually grab a hold of you.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And that's more like real life.
Yeah,
Right.
you can be
So-
manipulated.
Yeah.
Right.
Against yourself. Yeah.
So I mean, it was a good transition into policing. And of course, then I did boxing, and, to round everything up, making sure that,
Yeah.
because I learned from, watching some of the UFC guys, and I got some friends that are in the UFC, and one in particular, he was older, similar to me.
Yeah.
But because of his wrestling style, he did very, very well in the UFC. And the reason why he did so well is not because he was better in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or better in striking, but because wrestling controls and dictates where the fight goes. If you can't take me down, then it stays standing. If I want to go to the ground, I'll take you down, and then we're doing Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
So I thought, you know what, I needed to be all-rounded, because I needed to be on either, do my boxing, because you never know. If somebody's a better boxer than me, I don't want to stand up. I'm going to take them down.
Right.
If I got somebody that's a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter than me, I'm going to stay up boxing, right? I'm not going to take him down, or I'll take him against the wall and do your tactics there.
You know what? Just the little that I'm learning from you today, this is kind of the assumptions that I'm coming up with right now, okay? So Shawn is look. Everything that we talk about is the mindset and leveling up, right? And a lot of people that work for us are aspiring to get into policing, or something in law enforcement. And usually, we've heard stories of people when they get there. I've made it. I'm into policing. That's it. I've hit my goal. I'm done, right? But look at yourself. You got into the police force, and they said, "Okay, great. I want more." You went and got an education higher level than what was expected from you. You did it. Police give you basic, I want to say basic, but they give you training to help you get on. But, let me elevate it even more. Let me see where my weaknesses are exposed. And you did more, and you got into your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And to me, like, what I love about what I'm hearing from you is that, it's like it's not done yet. I still have more. I still have more. And I have so much more to learn.
It's
and
a
I have so
mindset
much
of
more to
growth.
give.
That's a mindset of growth
Absolutely.
versus just, I got to a point and I'm just going to relax.
Even to the work that you're doing right now.
Yes.
Which I think is very, very commendable to see that you're kind of doing that. It's like you've done 20 years, right? Are you thinking right now, man, like I got like another 10 more years and then I'm done? Like, or are you thinking like I can keep going? Because that's the vibe that I get from you.
You know what? I think we'll have to reassess it in 10 years. At the mindset right now is like, I've got 10 years, but you never know. There's coppers that are on, they've been on for 47 years. Right. And they're still on. So it all depends on where I am in those 10 years. But I like what I'm doing now. So I don't, I don't think I'd leave now.
And by the way, you come across like that. Like you enjoy your job. You enjoy being an impact in someone's life and making a change. That's very evident.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we've met many in your line of work, and sometimes there's a very obvious divide. Those who are affected by the day-to-day and those who affect the day-to-day.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it seems that like you've been the influencer in the environments that you've been in, and you can kind of see it on you and the energy you have. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I had an amazing role model. I'm watching my dad coach because after he wrestled, I mean, the transition for most athletes in that domain, they end up coaching. And I'm watching my dad, the way he operated, and these were my friends at the time that were going through some tough times. Just the way he treated people was amazing. And I think that's why I wanted to, be in a profession that was helping all the time, helping and, just giving me that opportunity to kind of be like him.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your dad? I mean, he was obviously an integral father figure. I mean, we may not, I don't think we said it yet. You're an author. You wrote a book about him, kind of fielding all of the stories. Can you just kind of go into that story and tell us the old title of your book and the new title? Yeah, we're keeping everyone on their toes today.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so my dad was he was an amazing man. I mean, he was a 3-time Olympian for Canada in the sport of wrestling, 68, 72, and 76. He, was the top of his game. He was a 10-time national champion. Not only that, is when he wrestled for Oklahoma State, which was one of the top universities in the United States for wrestling at the time, and it has a huge history at wrestling even to this day. But he was an All-American, which is a big feat.
Oh wow! Yeah,
he was actually a 3-time All-American. He was a 2-time All-American with Joliet Junior College, and then a 1-time All-American with Oklahoma State. So I had actually, watched him, what he did with the kids and stuff like that. But it was kind of afterwards. So we talked about the book a little bit. The process of writing the book was just kind of just healing for me. I had this big loss in my life. I really didn't know how to deal with it, and I really wanted to kind of, savor some of the stories, because at his funeral, a lot of his teammates, his coaches were telling me these stories, and I wanted to lock them down. I wanted to put them on paper.
Like a memoir.
And as I did, I started learning more and more about his character. A character, well, even a different person that I was. Because my dad didn't brag. He didn't talk about his accolades.
Right.
We always knew that he was the Olympian because everybody talked about that. He was this big, giant man. He was 250 pounds, 6'5".
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I got ripped off. My mom's 5 foot nothing. So I mean, the genetic pool. Yeah. He was a big, big man, and he had these long arms. These arms that just could reach out and just grab.
Wow.
Oh man.
And the hands. I can remember the hands because this was back in the day of spankings. Yeah. But his hands were about 4 times the size, and when I say 4 times the size, they were big hands.
Yes.
I can't even explain really how big they were, but
the baseball mitt.
Yeah, and they hit hard.
Yeah.
But that's his story. Just unlocked so many things about him. Like, he faced adversity in so many, so many portions of his life, and he just didn't give up. So that was one of the things that motivated for
Oh, I
me
love it.
for going back to school. You know,
Yeah.
I thought I'd always have this thought. You know, I want to go back to school. I want to get a degree in criminology, and you know, it was always put off, always put off, always put off. And then after writing his story, I'm like, look at everything he had going against him. You know, he blew his knee at Oklahoma State. That could have been the end of his career. He could have just focused on that. But he rehabbed, he became an All-American. He went on to win his spot on his second Olympic team. All in that. He just didn't give up. You know, so I mean,
Determination, man.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
so his example of that determination, tenacity was enough for you to say, okay, I got to do the same thing.
yeah, and that's something that
So good.
the message that I like to pass along to the kids that I get involved with, my kids that I coach.
Yeah.
You know, anybody that I come across, like, you can do stuff. It's just your mindset. You guys talk about mindset all the time, but you know, we have our mindsets. Well, I just spoke about myself, you know, being the biggest hurdle, me saying no, that mental block, saying I can't do it. Once we change that, you know, we can do just about anything.
So good.
If you think about, you know, babies, right? When you're a baby, what's the first thing you start to do? It's crawl, and then you progress to standing, and then you progress to walking.
Right.
But your mindset, you don't have anything in your mind saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do
You're
this.
only trying to do
You
it.
just keep doing it. And these are amazing feats. People think it's not, they're just walking. Those are amazing feats for a creature like that. It's, you know,
Very true.
so if you
Wow.
think the mindset that blocks us is very powerful, it ends up happening when, you know, we start to judge ourselves, and when others start to judge us. And we're like, I don't want to be seen as a loser, so I'm not even going to attempt to do that. And that's where that mindset starts to kind of shut us down. So it's important to kind of, you know, promote, you know, the mindset where, you know, you've got to grow. You know, you come back, and if I fail, you know what, I'm going to look at the entire path, and I'm going to go and figure it out, and then I'm going to try again.
I mean, that's the innocence of a child. The innocence of a child that they're unlearned.
So good.
They're
Yeah,
just
so
yeah.
good.
It's funny. It's actually true.
Yeah.
I have never seen a child doubt, trying to
True,
trying to
man.
stand
That's
up.
if you go
all,
to simplicity.
all they're
of it,
doing is
yeah.
just trying to stand,
Right.
and the next thing, and the next thing.
But they're
Yeah.
not even getting, like, as I'm thinking that example. By the way, this is the trailer, Mike. Just so you throw it
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
But I could tell you, like, even when a child, as you said, he's attempting and he's falling and he's falling and he's falling. There is no, like, where is this negative space of the world saying to him, it can't be done.
He doesn't have an ear for it.
He doesn't
yet.
have that. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist in his world.
Yeah.
All he can do is just keep going, keep going. So I think if we kind of reset our mindsets to that, just going right to the foundation, then really, you know what? Yeah, I can't fix this alternator on this. I'm just saying very intricate stuff right now, but
No, but you can go for those stages of not being able to move, to being able to wiggle and crawl,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
standing, to
Yes.
walking, and eventually running,
Right.
and even moonwalking.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're
Right.
really good. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can apply that to anything.
Yeah.
So with that like you've gone, it seems to me you've gone through a lot in life, man, like a lot. What would you say are some strategies that you use internally for yourself now in 2022 that when something gets difficult, or when, you know,
When you doubt.
when you doubt, or like, you know, because I get so much people are listening to this and they're like, okay, well, you know, I'm facing obstacles. How do you look at obstacles for yourself to be like, I'm looking at you like this, I'm going to get through you? Like, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's the mindset, you know, and because we're our biggest enemies. We're going to say, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And the minute we do that, there's the failure. So you know, with me, it's like, okay, well, look at the task, and okay, what does it take for me to achieve that? And I talk about, you know, one thing I want to do is I want to start playing guitar. So
Oh, I love
I
it.
don't know how to play guitar. So, well, that's my challenge. So I've got a guitar now. That's the first step, right? You got to aim at the problem.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
say, okay, how am I going to tackle this? Well, I can always go, I want to play guitar, and then do nothing about it, but I got to
Yeah.
tackle it. You buy a guitar, right? Now you're looking at it. Well, is it going to sit in the corner for a year, 2 years, 3 years? Or are you going to actually pick it up, tune it? And then, you know, that's the next step. So it's all about incremental success as you progress through any task. You have to break things down. You know, I was a victim of not doing that. You know, when you set big goals for yourself, right? And in 2008, I tried out for our Olympic team. Went to the Olympic trials. I'd won the nationals that year, so I thought this was going to be easy for me. I'll walk in on it, no problem. So, you know, I just walked in, and the expectation of me becoming an Olympian was just there. And I had my dad's accolades behind me. Well, guess what? I fell short. You know, I medaled, but I fell short.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, you know, I went back and I looked, well, why didn't I make it? And it was because I didn't prepare. I didn't do those incremental steps to go through. So big life lessons like that will teach you things. And that's what happened to me. Sometimes you get that smack in the face, you arrogant, you know, jerk. And that's what it was. Unfortunately, it was a big lesson for me. I wasn't able to achieve the status of my dad, but I was able to take that into other domains. And I could say, you know, education-wise, you know what, stupid, you're not going to get a degree unless you actually try. And you got to break it down to incremental success. You have to go, you know, say, hey, you know what, I've got to apply. Now that I'm in, now I've got to, you know, get the tuition ready, and I got to make all these things happen before it start actually occurring.
Get that little IKEA desk to go in the corner to study. But you build the environment for you to be able to succeed at it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you created your own unique journey. You know what I mean? I mean, you said in your mind, you may have said, I want to follow the footsteps of my dad and kind of achieve his goals, but those are his goals and his journey and his story, and you've created your own, and it's also very unique. Yeah. And to me, I think, again, the way you look at it is the success piece, is over jumping a hurdle with the mindset of, like, I'm going to do it like this.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, for anyone listening, stop doubting yourself, right? Yeah. I mean, as you said, we are our own worst enemy. There's a quote: "Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right." I think Henry Ford said it from what I know. But and that's the power of belief, right? You know, belief dictates. It's almost that is the real engine that determines whether you're going to do something or not. I had with buying the guitar. Kudos to you. I think it's amazing. I'm a musician myself. I believe you can learn any instrument at any age if you just decide to. Yeah, that's like, and that's like anything. I actually know. I had an English teacher in high school who kind of reached out to me through social media and said, "Hey, are you the same delinquent guy from high school?" in shorter words. And I said, "Yeah." And I found out this English teacher, who was Mr. Panessa, Mr. Lou Panessa, is an amazing guy. He was literally in charge of theater, and he was this passionate English teacher who stood on the desks. And before Dead Poets Society came out, mind you, I should say. Yeah. And he's a black belt now. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, hey, shout out to Mr. Panessa. We got some dogs outside. No, but he's a black belt in karate. Yeah. And I was like, huh? And he started in his 50s. Okay. And he just said, this is something I always wanted to do. And he decided it. So,
wow. Yeah. Look, to me, these are all things that are all moments of time to define.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone that's listening that's on the police force right now, he's on the police force because we got a wide audience, and they're like, I want to be part of the gang prevention unit, right? But what do I need to have? I mean, I've done my service. Well,
you got to have an open mind, I think, to the suppression part, not the suppression, but the preventative and the intervention. There is a mindset with some police officers, and I've been, because I'm in this domain of prevention, I've had other officers that have kind of looked at me differently and kind of gave me some what's the term I'm looking
for? Some
flack, and they've made comments. When you make a comment that you
like a sarcastic,
like a sarcastic comment is a jab that they why they're saying it.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I know.
Yeah, look at Shawn trying to keep the community clean.
Well, and that's it.
Like
that's
sarcastic.
You're a fraud. You're not a police officer anymore, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a one-dimensional thinking.
Yeah, and an old school kind of thinking almost too. Yeah.
Because I've done the job. I've chased these kids around. I've seized the firearms. Like I said, I've told you guys what I've done, and I've saw to the point where suppression is not the only answer. There is another portion to it, and I think that's because, I've educated myself with the criminology. I've seen the causes and effects. I see the risk factors that are occurring in the community. I know that there is a different way of going about this. I'm not saying suppression is not needed. It is needed. When we have these bad gangsters that are they're not reachable, because I've dealt with kids that are far beyond. They're immersed in the gang subculture. They don't want to do anything but be in the same culture. They want to be shot just to feel this feeling of being shot, and then be able to brag about it. Yeah, those are the kids that are really hard to reach. Yeah, I've dealt with those, but there's other ones that you can reach, and you can prevent them. Yeah, you can reach them. You can prevent them from either getting involved And that's the hard work, really. The easy work is suppression. I can arrest anybody, right, that's doing wrongdoing if I see them. But the hard work is actually getting out there on the streets, one, going against the common narrative of suppression, because like I said, the tradition is suppression, going against it. But, now getting out there, dealing with the community, convincing the community to trust us, that's a big thing too as well. And then offering the help and getting them the help and then getting them away from the gang subculture.
I mean, it's this simple. Trust is only through time. You only trust people through time. That's the truth. If police put their time in, the reality is you guys are in these neighborhoods because of the need, because of crime and a little kind of dangerous scenario. And there's so many variables, poverty and broken homes, and there's so many.
Yeah,
it's a really complex issue. But if you're being called into these communities for active crimes, it doesn't make sense to be in them as well to prevent it.
Yeah, and that's what
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the logic is like maybe if some time here would prevent some of these things. I know it's one-dimensional thinking to not embrace that, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the neighborhood officers, that program, that's what it's all about, immersing yourself in the neighborhood and being there. And that's why I was in Jane and Finch, the community there. I was there for 5 years in that role. And I saw what, you had to do a balance. You had to do the suppression and prevention and intervention as well.
Yeah.
You couldn't just do once, because if you did too much suppression, the community got mad at you. But if you did too much, intervention and prevention.
Yeah.
You're going to do the bake sales. You're doing all those things.
Yeah.
Then the community sees the criminals in the area get away with other things. So you got to have a balance, and that's that's the way we operated when I was policing in the neighborhood. With my partner, we did that, and it seemed to really work well. And the community did respect us to the point where I got a moniker of the nickname Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and this is the reality. You can be both. I think to your question.
Yeah.
I'll say this from my side. I worked in an organization that we worked in government housing neighborhoods. I was a youth worker for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I know your neighborhood. I know quite a few through the city. And the mindset of the community to police was a really afraid mindset, okay? Because they only had one representation of police, which would be basically raids or older brother being dragged off or mom being dragged off. Okay, and until the cops were around, and we say there's specific neighborhoods that I know downtown that they made huge strides by just being around. Yeah. Literally after school, the kids would come around, and the whole stigma of a cop started to erode. Yeah. And it's literally then the cop would maybe shoot some hoops with them, okay, and walk home with them, and hey, let's just walk and talk, and walk with 12 kids down the street as they did that 20-minute walk on Queen West. You know what I mean? Those could be defining moments. Because now it's not a cop, the enemy, the suppressor of our neighborhood. It's they actually, part of their job is to protect us. Yeah. Okay, and I think you introduced them to that. So I'd say that if you're, even for cops, I mean there's a whole other side of policing that I think that we're seeing the fruits of it in you.
Yeah.
And there's probably hundreds of stories that you're not even aware of how you've impacted these kids. Yeah. Mr. Clean and Teddy Bear.
Teddy Bear, yeah.
And Teddy Bear. Yeah, it's funny if they give you a nickname, it means they really like you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's how it works in those neighborhoods, right? So,
well, Shawn, look, anyone listening right now, I do know that you are active in the podcast world with Engage 416. So, Shawn, why don't we do a shout out right now? How can someone, if they want to hear more about what you talk about in regards to this, how would they follow you?
So I do a live stream most Monday to Fridays. Sometimes I'm not there, and it would be usually because of training or something like that. But for the most part, Monday to Fridays, we operate from 9 o'clock in the morning till 10. Sometimes it goes from 10 to 11. So you just have to kind of check in, and if you follow me on Instagram, which is TPS Shreky,
okay,
it's another one of my, and I look like Shrek, so
okay. I love it.
So TPS Shreky, and Twitter. I'm also on Twitter. So we do the live feed goes from Twitter, YouTube. That's the Engage 416 channel on YouTube. And it's also on my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is Shawn Geris. So you can get on there, and the live feed goes in every single day. And I talk about the gang subculture. I talk about the Engage 416 initiative, but I also talk about policing in general. So I'll answer questions.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I want to thank you for your time. For everyone listening, today we've had Shawn Geris. For the Europeans, Shawn Geris. Just want to get you in there. But I want to just throw out that, I love hearing your story. I love the fact that, you've been able to do so much and want more, and that oozes all over you. And I love what you guys are doing to kind of restore broken communities that basically are going through gang life right now. I would say like you are a genuine individual, and I really want to thank you for coming down today. And again, for those listening, if they want to get a little bit more in depth, please listen to those things. We're gonna have some links as well, so people can kind of directly be able to link to your live streams and whatever other content that you have. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a pleasure.
Amazing. All right, have a great day, guys. Take care.
All right.
Peace.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.